we started fundamentals of pronunciation, and in previous days and previous 2 days we studied the definition of pronunciation, intonation, digraph, trigraph, and then yesterday we studied homograph, homophone, homonym, and also syllable. The last topic was syllable, and we said that syllable is a word or part of a word which contains a single vowel sound. And we said words are pronounced in parts. Each part is a syllable which has a vowel sound. So we can count the numbers of syllables in a word according to the vowel sounds it has, but not vowel letters, as we studied yesterday. Now we come to next topic, which is stress. Stress, we call it Fishar in Dari, in Pashto we call it Khaj in Pashto grammar. Stress is the degree of force or loudness put on a syllable, that is a word or part of a word, when it is said so that it sounds louder than other syllables, meaning other parts. When we talk, when we pronounce words, if you have noticed, one part or one syllable of a word is pronounced louder than other parts, than other syllables. We always pronounce one syllable of a word in a louder voice compared to other syllables. This loudness of our voice is called stress. When we raise our voice in one part of the word, that is actually syllable. So stress is the degree of force. We bring force on our voice, or loudness. We make our voice loud on a syllable. And a syllable is a word or part of a word. When we bring this loudness, when we talk or when we pronounce this part loudly, when it is said, of course, when we pronounce the word, when we talk. And why we do this? So that it sounds louder than other syllables or other parts, because we want this one part in this one syllable to be louder than other syllables. And this is something natural. You cannot pronounce a word without putting stress on a syllable. You have to naturally put stress on a syllable. But the problem is, which syllable should we stress? And unfortunately, I would say that in English we do not have a lot of rules to know which syllable has to be stressed. We have a few rules, around 20-25%. We will study them inshallah. But mostly, more than 70%, we do not have any rules for stress. So we have to learn the stress of each word individually. And that's why mostly non-native speakers, when they learn English, they make mistake in correct pronunciation of stress in the right place of stress. Like especially Asian people, like Afghans, Pakistanis, Indians, they usually make mistake in stress. Because in these languages, if you have noticed, in Pashto, Dari, Urdu, Hindi, in these languages, mostly the stress is always in the last syllable, if you have noticed. For example, in Pashto, we say chauke. The last syllable has stress. K. Darwaza. Kitabcha. We always put stress on the last syllable. So it is simple in our language. Similarly in Pashto, in Urdu, Dari. But in English, it is not like that. In one word, there may be stress on the first syllable, in another word in the second syllable, and another word in the third syllable. Anyways, let's first come to examples. For example, the second syllable of agree is stressed. The word agree, which is also mostly mispronounced. Many people say agree. I agree with you. They put stress on the first syllable. But the correct pronunciation is agree. Stress is on second syllable. This is the sign for stress. This sign shows stress. And it is also called this, the name of this sign is accent. It is also called accent. Because the stress has a very big role in your accent. That's why it is called accent. Alright. Because we said that we put stress on the syllable of a word. So a word may have as many possibilities of stress as it has syllables. We said that we put stress on a syllable of a word. So the more syllables there are, the more confusion. Because there are more possibilities, more choices for you, and more challenging. If a word has two syllables, like agree, you have two choices, a Great. You can put stress either on first syllable or on second syllable. If you put stress on first syllable, you will pronounce it agree. And if you put on second syllable, you will pronounce it agree, which is correct. If a word has three syllables, you have three options, like interesting. If you put stress on first syllable, it will be interesting. If you put stress on second syllable, it will be interesting, as many people say. And if you put stress on third syllable, it will be interesting. But the correct stress is first syllable, interesting. Again, people are mistaken, they say interesting. But the correct is interesting, first syllable. If a word has four syllables, you have four possibilities. Like necessary. We have four syllables, so four options. I mean, our work is becoming more difficult to recognize the correct place. If you put stress on first syllable, necessary. If you put on second syllable, necessary. Necessary, as many people say. And if you put stress on third syllable, necessary. Necessary, on sa. And if you put stress on fourth syllable, necessary. Necessary, on re. But the correct is first syllable, necessary. Again, people say necessary, but the correct is necessary. Stress on first syllable. So the more syllables, the more confusion. Therefore, words which have one syllable are never confused. If a word has one syllable, you will not have any confusion in stress because you have only one option. The entire word is a syllable, so the whole word is stressed. For they are stressed themselves, such as back. Now the word back has one syllable. So you have one option because it has one syllable. There isn't any second option. So please your flow. So definitely you would put stress on the entire word back. Or for example, the word face. The entire word has one syllable. The whole word is a syllable. So we stress the whole word. The entire word. No confusion. Because you have only one option. And therefore, if you check the phonetic symbol of words with one syllable in dictionaries, they do not give the sign of stress in one syllable words. Because it is already clear. It is already known. No need to give the sign of stress. But if a word has more than one syllable, then they give the sign of stress. So that you know which syllable has the stress. And sometimes there are more possibilities. A word can have stress in more than one syllable. Then you can find in dictionaries. And sometimes British and American difference. We will study inshallah. For example, the word has stress on third syllable in American English, advertisement. But in British English, advertisement on second syllable. So sometimes there is also difference of British and American English. So this was about stress. I repeat, stress is the degree of force or loudness which is put on a syllable when you say it, so that it sounds louder than other syllables. We pronounce words in parts yesterday, we said in syllables. So we pronounce one syllable louder than other syllables. This loudness is called stress. And the more syllables, the more confusion, because we have more possibilities. And if there is one syllable, no confusion. Any question up to here, you can ask. Okay, any question? Okay, we have types of stress. There are two major types of stress. Generally or mainly we have two kinds of stress. Subtypes are many, but generally we have two kinds of stress. One is called primary stress or main stress, and the other is called secondary stress. As the name suggests, primary stress is the stress where a word is emphasized the most, which means you put more loudness on a syllable. You pronounce the syllable the most loudly. And this type of stress is also called main stress. Another name for primary stress is main stress, and it is shown by this sign in dictionaries. On the top of phonetics, you will have this sign like this. This is the sign for primary stress or main stress. Then we have secondary stress. Secondary stress is the stress where a word is emphasized but slightly, not allowed. In secondary stress, when a syllable has a secondary stress, you also pronounce it loudly but a little, not as much as in main stress or primary stress. And it is shown by this sign in dictionaries. The same sign but in the bottom of phonetic symbols. If a word has secondary stress, you will find it in the bottom of the symbols. Alright, a word may have one secondary stress, more than one or none, while every word has only one primary stress. Every word has main stress, and every word has only one main stress. But secondary stress, maybe we have one secondary stress, maybe we have two secondary stresses, more than that, or maybe we do not have secondary stress. For example, in economical, the first syllable has a secondary stress and the third syllable has the primary stress. The word economical and first syllable e, we have secondary stress. We pronounce it a little loudly. But the third syllable na, it has main stress, primary stress. It is pronounced the most loudly. See, economical, a little, economical. So this word has one secondary stress. Another example, in tetrahedron, the first syllable and the third syllables have secondary stresses, and the sixth syllable, that is second last syllable, has the primary stress. See, now we have two secondary stresses. And first syllable tetra, and in third syllable chi. But the main stress is on sixth syllable he. Tetrahedron. Tetrahedron. Okay, the next thing, if you noticed that we have more than one syllable when the secondary stresses, when the word becomes long. The longer the word becomes, the more secondary stresses we will have. See, economical is comparatively longer than other words. It has a secondary stress. Tetrahedron is much more longer. It has two secondary stresses. So the longer the word becomes, the more secondary stresses we will have. Because pronouncing it with one main stress will be difficult. Therefore, to pronounce it easily, we will also have secondary stresses. And maybe we do not have secondary stress in a word. For example, announcement. It only has main stress. It does not have any secondary stress. So as we mentioned, every word has main stress and every word has only one main stress. But secondary stress, it can be one, more than one, or maybe none. If you have any question up to here, you can ask. Tetrahedron. It is a solid shape with 14 sides. Swarlazuli. A shape which has 14 sides is called tetrahedron. More questions? No question? Okay, enough, or shall we continue?
In some places we say that if it is a noun and it is a matter of syllables, this goes to the first syllable of the second one. Maybe the same for us.
In Chem English sense, as I mentioned before at the beginning of the class, that in some cases we have rules, but fewer rules. For stress, we have around 20 to 25% rules. But most of the time, more than 70%, we do not have rules. We have to learn the words individually. But around 20%, 25%, we have rules. We will study, inshallah. One of them, as you mentioned here, we have in the bottom, that in two-syllable words, stress is in second syllable if it is verb. If it is noun, stress is in first syllable. But again, not always. And we will inshallah come to that later. Any other question? Okay, shall we study variable stress or enough for today? Okay, we will study variable stress also. Variable stress, as the name suggests, which can be varied, changeable. Why variable? Because it changes its place from one syllable to another syllable, depending on how it is used in sentence. So variable stress, it is a type of main stress actually. It is the main stress of some nouns and adjectives which moves to first syllable of the word when they are used attributively. Variable stress is a kind of main stress, and this type of main stress is found only in nouns and in adjectives, not in other parts of speech, because only nouns and adjectives have these two positions, attributive position and predicative position. Now here, pronunciation somewhat touches grammar. As you know, in grammar, adjective has two positions. One is attributive, when it is used next to a word that it modifies. And one is predicative, when it is used after a linking verb and describes the subject. For example, if I say, he is tall, the adjective is used predicatively. And if I say, he is a tall boy, the adjective is used attributively. So we can use adjective in these two positions, and we can use noun in these two positions, because in compound nouns the first noun becomes like adjective and modifies the other noun. So some nouns and some adjectives, not all of them, some nouns and some adjectives, their main stress is not normal, it is changeable, it is variable, which means that the main stress in these nouns and in these adjectives is not in first syllable. It is maybe in the second syllable or maybe in the third syllable. And when you use this noun or this adjective predicatively, the stress is pronounced in its own place. But if you use the same noun or same adjective attributively, the stress shifts to first syllable. It moves to first syllable. That's why it is called variable stress, changeable stress. And this phenomenon or this rule is also called stress shift. This whole rule is called stress shift. And the sign of stress shift is shown by this in dictionaries. At the end of phonetic symbols, you will find this small sign like a triangle which is facing left side, which means that main stress moves this side to first syllable if it is used attributively. So when the noun, okay, and the next thing is that we said that in attributive position, the stress moves to first syllable. But when the noun or adjective is used attributively, its secondary stress is then removed if there is any in first syllable. We said these adjectives and nouns, in which main stress is variable. And when we use it in attributive position, the main stress comes to first syllable. But if in first syllable there is already secondary stress, then it will be removed. Because secondary stress is not necessary, it is optional. Before we said we may or may not have secondary stress, but primary stress is necessary. Next thing is that in secondary stress, we pronounce the syllable a little loud. But in main stress, we pronounce it more loudly. So little loudness disappears in a lot of loudness. For example, we have the word indistinct. Now this word is an adjective, and its main stress, at the end of phonetic symbols you will find this sign, which means this adjective has a changeable, variable main stress. So if I use this word in predicative position, then the stress is pronounced where it is shown. That is third syllable. For example, his plan was indistinct, which means unclear. His plan was indistinct. I use the adjective indistinct predicatively, so I pronounce it in its own place. But if I use the same word attributively before a noun, then the main stress comes to first syllable and the secondary stress disappears from the first syllable. For example, he drew some indistinct shape. Indistinct shape. The main stress is shifted to first syllable because I used it attributively. Another example for variable stress is the adjective lukewarm, which means neither cold nor hot. Tadam in Pashto we say tadam. If I use this word predicatively, then okay, and the symbols are like this. Lukewarm. First syllable secondary stress and second syllable main stress, but variable main stress, not normal. So, if I use this word predicatively, for example, if I say the water is lukewarm, lukewarm. So I pronounce it as it is. But if I use it attributively, then the main stress will shift to first syllable. For example, I want some lukewarm water. Lukewarm water. The main stress shifts to first syllable. Another example is academic. Academic. The word academic, the first syllable has secondary stress, and the third syllable de has main stress, and it has the stress shift sign. So if I use it attributively, predicatively, the main stress will be in third syllable. For example, this matter is academic. Academic. But if I use it attributively, main stress will come to first syllable. For example, he is an academic manager. He is an academic manager. Many will say academic, which is incorrect. If it is used predicatively, academic. If used attributively, academic, but not academic. So that was variable stress or stress shift, which is a kind of main stress found in some adjectives and some nouns. And those adjectives and those nouns, if they are used predicatively, the main stress is in its own place. But if those adjectives and nouns are used attributively, then main stress moves to first syllable. That was variable stress, which is a kind of main stress. Any question you can ask.